Good morning and welcome to the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy at the Harvard Kennedy School. I'm Sushma Raman, the Executive Director of the Carr Center, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome all of you today, as well as our distinguished speakers, for conversation on the human rights situation currently in Myanmar. At least 9 people were killed today in protests as the military continues to suppress the protests that have been sweeping the country over the past month. Today's deaths followed a bloody crackdown on Sunday, where many people were killed by police after they opened fire. Many protesters sustained bullet injuries, others were injured, and protesters have been pouring into the streets over the past months in response to the military coup, which has ended a decade-long transition to democracy. So today I'm honored to be joined by 3 renowned experts and human rights activists on Myanmar who will share their thoughts with us, and we will have a chance to also engage in conversation with them. And we welcome your questions from the audience in the chat box. We'll first hear from Thinzar Shunlin Yi, whose focus is on youth development and dialogue. She's the coordinator of the National Youth Congress and the Yangon Youth Network. In 2014, she helped organize the ASEAN Youth Forum and held a highly successful UN International Youth Day celebration, reaching thousands of young people and raising awareness on mental health issues. She's the founder of the diversity campaign #MyFriend and seeks to combat intolerance and extremism in Burma, particularly through the voices of youth. She's also an active member of the first ever Ambassadors Youth Council at the US Embassy there. We'll next hear from Weiwei Nu, who emerged from 7 years as a political prisoner to become a human rights advocate and the founder of 2 organizations, the Women's Peace Network and the Yangon Youth Center. Through the Women's Peace Network, Weiwei works to build peace and mutual understanding between Myanmar's ethnic communities and to empower marginalized women throughout Myanmar to advocate for their rights. Her work also aims to reduce discrimination and hatred among Buddhist and Muslim communities and to improve the human rights of the Rohingya people. Weiwei also founded the Yangon Youth Center to engage youth in the peace building process. And finally, we'll hear from Matt Smith, who's the co-founder and chief executive officer of Fortify Rights. Matt previously worked with Human Rights Watch, Earth Rights International, and Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, and he is a fellow at the Carr Center, has been a fellow at the Carr Center and was an Echoing Green Global Fellow. His work has exposed genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, multi-billion-dollar corruption, and other human rights violations. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'll turn it over now to Thinzar. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all for attending as well. And I know that many of you are in solidarity with the Myanmar people and support the pro-democracy movement in the country. We are truly, honored to hear such words from every single word count for us, because now we are the only thing we've been waiting is the mental support from different peoples of different nations. At the same time, we are also pushing for diplomatic pressure and a political pressure from the government as well. But at the same time, our peoples to people solidarity is what matters the most in the end. So that's what I want to say. Appreciation to all of you. So I've been and so what presented was my old CV, but right now I'm working with the grassroots coalition called Action Committee for Democracy Development for over 5 years now. So I work closely with the other different human rights defender across the country as well, and I've been outspoken about the freedom of expression, especially freedom of expression, for the past 5 years. So when we had the first ever civilian government, we were overjoyed and we were so ready, we were so prepared to advocate further to advance our basic rights. And for me, I was specializing on the administration, reform, and also. But after a year, I realized, after a year of the civilian government, I realized we have to focus on mainly on freedom of expression. Then my organization changed our priorities, and freedom of expression became our foremost first priority issue to talk about. So since that I've been speaking out about that, and to amend the laws, and also to protect our basic right, which is freedom of expression. So now I think when the coup happened, when everyone now turned out to be a protester, everyone turned out to be an activist, now we are all convinced how freedom of expression is so important. Now we are all fighting, not just to overthrow the military junta, but also to defend our basic freedom, which is freedom of expression. We are now expressing ourselves in different forms. Every individual are now joining the strike. Even older, like grandmoms and pas, they can just bend pots and pans at night every day, to show they are resistant, like expressing themselves. Many artists, celebrity join in the movement to express their resistance and dissent against the military junta. So I think now everyone's convinced the importance of the freedom of expression. Before it was so difficult. Even I was charged, and we were threatened, we were harassed legally, online and offline. For we advocated against the advocated for the freedom of expression to the civilian government. So that's a very basic background. So today it was such a heartbroken day for us. Almost every day for executive, I think, because like 3 days in serials already in Yangon, especially in Yangon, in the big city, there is a bloodshed. Now it's increasing day by day. Today we had witnessed brutal killing of military and police. On the street in the bright daylight, like 12 people got killed, even from one city, from one township, North Oklahoma. So North Oklahoma, they trying to lock their own town in the morning, and then the police will find it really hard to get inside the town to disperse the crowds, and so they took a revenge at noon, and in the evening they came back with the bigger force, and they just kill anyone. Some people report that they use machine gun to, with the live ammunitions, and many tear gas, around 50 tear gas were thrown, not just by the police, but even there were reports like the fighter jets flying around over Yangon, and they just throw the tear gas to disperse the crowd in the township. But also in the nationwide level, we have now more than 20 people got killed even today. So but despite all these bad news, I feel inspired at the same time that at every night at 8 p.m. we ban pots and pan every day, not missing any single day. So today we ban pots and pan louder. We send sound, revolutionary sounds, even louder than other days, and we pay tributes to our fallen martyrs on the streets. So I feel inspired. People are resisting. People are like, taking all these bad news as an encouragement to go farther, to go stronger. So that's the good news from me for today. It's been a long day today. And at the same time, as a last remark, the shirt I'm wearing represents 3 fingers. We are demanding to end the military junta in the country. Is the first finger that we've been advocating to the world, to all the friends around the world. The second finger represents we want to end dictatorship, all forms of dictatorship, not just in Myanmar, but also in the region, also in the world. because dictatorship becomes, coming in different forms and in a modernized way. We sometimes lose sight of how it is. So we should not lose sight of, the digital dictatorship or monarchy or one single party dictatorship. Wherever, we need to reach out equally. And the third finger represent, we are looking forward to form a true revolution for federal democratic nations. So our demands in the first few weeks were all about to restore the previous government, to release the leader, especially Aung San Suu Kyi. But day by day, we get to know, especially young generation, are all convinced that our demands should be more than that. Now, it's not just an anti-coup protest. It's more like a revolution. It's already an uprising against all forms of dictatorship in the country. We are going to overthrow the military junta once and for all for the federal democratic nation. So that's our main demands for now. Thank you so much. I wish you all to document the human rights violations in the country, because now, even myself as a human rights defender, everything becomes so personal to me, and I can even focus my profession and career. Many of us feeling mental distraction, all these things. I hope you all help with this documentation of the human rights violation. Don't miss any of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tenzar, for joining us today, and also for the work that you're doing on a daily basis. I hope that you and your family and colleagues are staying safe during this time. I'm going to turn it over now to Wei Wei, who is going to talk with us, and then we'll hear from Matt.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sushma. Thank you, Matt and Tenza, and it's an honor to be here to discuss today. And thank you, Tenza, for sharing, your experience and the situations on the ground. And my, thoughts are with you. It's been crazy day. I can imagine how hard it can be for you, how exhausting. And thank you for joining. It's so on 28th Sunday, I thought it was the bloodiest day. We had at least 18 people died on last Sunday. And today is worse. So as Tenza said, it's been getting worse day by day, and it's really, really terrifying. Some of the things that we're seeing here, it's really like, for me, it's feel like the military is so empowered to carry out the bloodshed against the civilian. In some cases, in most cases, it's in the middle of the cities, in big cities. So until Sunday, it was, I think it was, they were mostly prioritizing small cities. They were mostly targeting small cities like Myitkyina, Mandalay, and many other cities, including Naypyidaw. Naypyidaw have been hurt so badly almost every day. But now, they are doing the same thing in Yangon, where, technology is more advanced, where we have more access to these civilians, journalists, where eyes are there, where we have all these embassies. But the behavior that today the military show it's unacceptable and really horrifying. We can see they were not only targeting the protesters, but also the humanitarian workers and other medical personnels, and shoot into the crowd, indiscriminately shoot into the crowd, and enter into people's houses and destroy and shoot into the houses and as such. So the patterns is so scary at this point. The indiscriminate shooting, the arrest, and the torture, all of these things. I guess I yesterday, it's just like I feel like there is no what to speak right now, in the way they've been targeting civilian, unarmed civilian with this both by the deployment of these militaries, which are these especially in Yangon, LID 77 Light Infantry, the Division 77, and in Mandalay, Light Infantry Divisions 33rd. Some of these brutal LIDs has been deployed in big cities, and in the beginning we thought they were only going to scare people and they're not going to actually shoot people, but now it seems like that is not the case, and that is not the case. They're going to continue this, and I also feel like it's because they tested little by little in the previous days, but now they are getting a bit bolder, because even when we had like people died, and even when we had now we have over 1,000 people have been arrested, there has not been any like stronger and proper actions apart from some sanctions from a few countries. So I feel like they feel more they feel sort of not empowered, but they feel like we can get away with it, and they are continuing to crack down, to bloodshed against the civilian. And as Thinza said, people are determined actually to continue regardless of the crackdown and the attack, the death. The young people are like, the more you killed us, the more you arrest us, the more we will come out, and with stronger determinations and with stronger strategy. So they are coming up, they're using all these tactics, all these talent, and all this strategy available for them without using arms. And I also think the military is now scared of the people a little bit, and that's why they're targeting more, but the behavior today they show is totally unacceptable. Targeting civilian and attacking civilians with this live immunizations, with the use of lethal force, indiscriminate shooting, targeting the healthcare workers. I'm seeing the elements of crimes against humanity here, and I think this is a question of when and how the UN and the international community is going to take action. If we are late, I think we're going to see a more bigger atrocities, and I am very I don't want to imagine this. I'm very terrified. I feel like they can do anything they want. And yesterday, when we had this the violence against Rohingya in Rakhine state in 2016 and 17, it was we didn't get a lot of evidence and information out there because we didn't have journalists and media. People were it happened in very rural, in very poor villages in Maundo and in Butidong in northern Rakhine state, right? Although there were some footage, there was some footage available on social media, but seeing something similar happen I feel like in the middle of the city is really, really terrifying. In the middle of the big city where there are thousands of eyes, right? It is terrifying. I think I'm really concerned. I'm really worried. I can't even sleep and eat, sitting here. We just need, at this point, we need to push harder. It is going to be a shame, outrageous for the international community to let this happen. And knowing that what the Burmese military, Myanmar Thermidor, is capable of doing against its population. I'm going to end here. Then I will maybe join you with discussions during the questions and answer.
Thanks so much, Wei. And thank you, Tenzar. And thank you very much, Sushma, and everybody at the Carr Center for convening this event, which is essentially about an emergency that's unfolding as we speak, a grave emergency. I would add, I think just to maybe recap a few of the events since February 1st. For those who are viewing, and just to build on a bit about what Tenzar and Wei spoke about. The coup was, of course, on February 1st in the early morning hours. Arrests were made. So essentially the military overthrew the government, arrested State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi, President Win Myint, and commenced arresting other government officials, elected officials and others. The very next day, the military appointed what they're calling the State Administrative Council. This is on February 2nd. I think it's important to emphasize this is an illegitimate body. This is not the government of Myanmar. This is a murderous military junta. Shortly after establishing that illegitimate body, the military began essentially trying to create a legal framework that would give them some justification on paper to essentially attack the people of Myanmar, to deprive the people of Myanmar of their rights. Of course, as a the State Administrative Council has no legitimacy as a legislative body. So, but at any rate, they're attempting to use these laws to oppress the people even further. As I'm sure, as you've already heard, the crackdown's unfolding. There have been more than 1,200 people that have been either arrested, charged, or sentenced since February 1st. That number is increasing every day. The number of people killed, we're still trying to establish that. The news media is establishing that. The High Commissioner for Human Rights, the UN Special Rapporteur, Tom Andrews, and others. And certainly many people on the streets of Myanmar are doing amazing work to document what this military junta is doing. They're collecting facts, they're establishing facts, they're spreading awareness on social media. A few points in terms of the international response. As Wei mentioned, we have seen some sanctions. These are, of course, important. It's important for the world to know that that this is the behavior of the Myanmar military is completely outrageous and criminal. But of course, there are limited utility to these sanctions. Nobody thinks there'll be a silver bullet, but they are essential. We have seen some. We're hopeful that we will see more action from governments in response to the crackdown that's unfolding. The United States government was, I think, one of the first to the Biden administration was one of the first to sanction military generals, the architects of this coup. One thing that we're advocating for now is for governments to take a closer look at the junta's revenue flows. This is one aspect of sanctions that has never been explored with regard to Myanmar. But right now, the civil disobedience movement in Myanmar is, I think, the strongest possible sanction out there. This is a nationwide movement. People are not at their jobs, they're not in their homes, they're in the streets, and essentially attempting to bring the functions of the military junta to a grinding halt. This has been effective so far. And I think there's efforts that the international community can make to calibrate with the civil disobedience movement, with the people of Myanmar. For example, the state of Myanmar prior to the coup benefited greatly from natural gas revenues. There are multi-billion-dollar revenues, natural gas sales to China as well as to Singapore. And those funds have long been held in banks in Singapore and other countries. And so I think something important for governments to think about is to understand that if this murderous military junta is taking control of public funds, which are essentially the funds that belong to the people of Myanmar, banks and governments need to step in to prevent that from happening. So that is one area that I think should be explored. The UN Security Council did convene and issued what was in effect, I think, a watered down statement given the gravity of what's going on, but they did nonetheless issue a statement. Right now, we're calling for the UN Security Council to urgently convene to impose a global arms embargo on the Myanmar military, to issue sanctions against military-owned enterprises and the architects of this coup, and also to consider, actually just to refer the situation in Myanmar to the International Criminal Court for mass atrocity crimes, including the genocide against the Rohingya, war crimes against other ethnic nationalities, crimes against humanity that are unfolding. I think Weiwei is correct in mentioning that we're starting to see the signs of what it might amount to international crimes in this current crackdown. I'd also like to mention too that what we're seeing is what appears to be a national strategy. So the way in which the police and military are opening fire on people, the way that they're cracking down and arresting, beating, killing people is consistent from towns to cities nationwide. And so this demonstrates to us a level of coordination, a level of planning. I think it's something important to document and to be thinking about in terms of criminal liability for these violations. But I think I'll end there. I do just want to emphasize that this is, of course, an unfolding emergency right now. And the people of Myanmar, as Thinzar said eloquently, the people of Myanmar need and want your support. So governments need to act, individuals need to do whatever they can to raise awareness and support those who are risking their lives on the street. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Matt, and to each of you for sharing your insights and perspectives on this situation that's rapidly unfolding. We have several questions from the audience, and we encourage those of you who would like to raise a question to post it in the chat, and we will be drawing on them. So I might point questions towards a specific person, or I might just say it more generally, and it would be great for you to just sort of jump in with your answer. So one question from the audience is, who is gathering evidence of crimes against humanity, and how can such a case be advanced?
I'm happy to take a first, share some thoughts on that. I think, so right now there are a number of human rights organizations, community-based organizations in Myanmar. Local news agencies have been doing tremendous work to document the violations that are happening right now in Myanmar. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is documenting human rights violations. The UN Special Rapporteur, Tom Andrews, is also documenting the violations that are happening. And in terms of exploring the extent to which this deadly crackdown would constitute international crimes, I think given the fact that it's unfolding right now, it's a question that I think a lot of human rights defenders, even legal practitioners, haven't really had time to consider. I think, for example, just today, we're seeing video evidence of summary executions, in at least one video that I witnessed just before getting on this call. There's an individual held in police, what was essentially a situation of detention on the street, and then was executed. So we're seeing that level of brutality. So I do think it's sensible to be thinking about international crimes at this point, but it is an unfolding situation.
So Tinzar, I'm going to ask you this question also from the audience, whether there's any chance of mutiny within the military, and what are sort of the entry points perhaps for alliances between protesters and people who are in the military? Are there opportunities for that?
Likely no. Because as we start a civil disobedience movement, there are a lot of people affected from military and especially from police. Even just recently, I helped one policeman, leaving the police stations that he was assigned to in Yangon. He couldn't bear what's going on. He don't want to obey them anymore. So he just went off in the early morning, like 4 a.m. this morning. So he wasn't involved in today's crackdown because he knew that I think he might knew what's going on and he couldn't take that. So many policemen across the whole region, whole country are also doing CDM as the police and military take more leader force to crack down the peaceful protester. But within military, it's so hard. It's so hard. Many of them are being brainwashed, and especially they are using military units, like the most brutal military unit that they also use these units when they cracked down Rohingya people in 2017 as well. So it's pretty hard for the military people as well, given the laws and their restriction, all the orders that they have, even if they want to, it's not easy. Now I've been hearing some of my friends living inside the military unit, none of them are allowed to go out. Even their family members are allowed to go out now. So, but with the use of social media, I'm pretty sure they might be aware of what's going on. I hope they would join despite all these things, but likely there is no, there is a fewer chance.
Thank you. Wei, I'm wondering if you can talk about what international community, whether it's NGOs or foundations or even, individuals who are supportive, what is it that people can do to best support the people who are striking and the people who are participating in the protests? One person asked whether financial support is possible for people who are part of this. What are ways in which people can get involved and engaged?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, there are many ways. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all the people that now help in Myanmar and the supporters, the protesters in Myanmar, and all the old friends and new friends that now again, like coming back to this movement and helping us in many ways. It's been really heartwarming to see the support and the attention that we're getting from throughout the world, from the people, from the public. So I just want to thank and acknowledge that first, and all of your great work. It's help, for its help, and it's help in many ways. It can be moral support, and it can be moral support too. It can be a force for change on the ground. And so it's really important to continue to keep helping, to keep supporting, saying that those who haven't joined, how can you join? Yes, there are many ways, as I said. Financial support is definitely one. As Dinza mentions and Matt mentioned, there are we have at least 50 township has joined the CDM movement, civil disobedience movement. Means like public servants will be losing their job. Now they are joining the movement. So it's already a month that they didn't work. So there is a great potential possibility that they are going to lose their job. In this case, we might need like a great support for their future, for their families, and they might face so many challenges in their life. And also the protesters, many of these young people, like a month on the street, they need a lot of support, from protection to the material support to many other things. Perhaps Tenza can share more detail about what they need in terms of in terms of protections equipment to the other support, including relocation support, emergency support, stuff like that. So definitely financial support is important. When we talk about financial support, we need to look at approach into a long-term and short-term approach, emergency approach for the moment. At the same time, I think, as Tenza said, what young people in Myanmar are looking for is a long-term change. It's a real true democracy. It's actually beyond the normalcy that we had before. So it will require a lot of effort and support. So long-term support for the young people, groups in Myanmar, local groups like youth groups, is, I think, crucial in terms of building a future that we want to have as a country. And so yeah, long-term and short-term priorities and strategy in terms of financial support is essential. And the second thing that you can do is raising awareness, being informed, learning the situation through media or people like us directly, and keep in touch with us and learn the situations, be informed, and raise the awareness in any ways that you can, on social media or through in your community, or if it, depending on what profession you do, you can raise awareness in many ways. In these days, it's very easy. The technology is our advantage. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to tweet, to use your Instagram, your Facebook, or anything that is available out there to show solidarity with us, and to post a photo of you, at least showing the 3-finger sign, and or calling for the solidarity, showing your solidarity with us. So that is a minimum thing, I guess, you could do. And beyond that, if you want to take another step, you could write a letter to your representative, your senators and congressmen and women in your city or state, because we have 3 legislations on the Congress that has to be done, move forward, and the Biden administration's, President Biden administrations, has imposed some sanctions, but we need stronger sanctions. We need a more comprehensive sanctions. So I think it is important that you write to them to do so. And also, we must remember that this military is the military committed to genocide against the Rohingya, and that has not been held accountable yet, let alone holding accountable for their crimes. The crime has not even been recognized. So there is a campaign for the recognitions of Rohingyas genocide as genocide by the state, by the US government. And it was extremely difficult during the past during the last government. But now, people are hoping that President Biden administrations will acknowledge the Rohingya crimes as genocide. And I think this is one thing that you can help push the government to recognize it. Only when they recognize, we will have actual actions, and it will help us to take actions against military institutions in Myanmar as a whole, and it will help the current coup situations as well. So I would strongly encourage you to do that. And otherwise, the last thing that you can do is use your skill, talent, and time for our people, for our organizations, groups, Burmese local groups, to support them in terms of assisting them in providing technical support and other support that you could provide by using your skill, talents, and time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pivot now, because we've talked about this international solidarity effort, to solidarity within the country. And there is now a trend where more and more people who are participating in the protests are expressing solidarity with the Rohingya, and are even sometimes apologizing for not acknowledging the genocide. So I'm wondering if you can each speak briefly to how widespread this trend is, and whether this could actually mean greater solidarity among different ethnic groups within the country going forward. Do you want to get us started, Weiwei, or Thinzar, and then?
I will let Thinzar start first.
Okay.
So with the revolutions going on, with all these atrocity happening, all the bad news, but at the same time, they are good news, because we learned from the process, because every revolution brought us a united spirit, among ourselves. Before, it was so confusing, under civilian leadership, under the military drafted 2008 constitution, things were so confusing. We're not sure who is who. And now we are sure, we are so clear who is our main enemy for so long. And the big elephant in the room. Now everybody just get, focused on the main enemy. And now everyone's joining in fighting against this. For us, I've been an activist for the past 10 years. I've been talking the same thing, but now I feel like I've been joined by many people, even celebrities, young celebrities, so influential. They start talking about crimes against humanity. I never thought I would be hearing such word from their mouth. And now they are, actively campaigning for that, so likely they would accept the genocide case of the Rohingya as well, because the young generation, they are easy to understand, they are easy to cope with this situation. And now they are admitting, they are confessing that they regret that they didn't stand up with the Rohingya people. They didn't stand up with the minority in the past few years. And they are now committing, they will be more active. Many of my friends also came and talked to me. They are sorry, they were not that active in politics, they were not activists before. So I think it's good. At the same time, I take it as a good sign for our generations. We would be more united, more aware of what's going on, and we'll be more interested in human rights, not just for our own right, but also defending others' right as well. So that's the key thing. That's something I've been learning from the process. I take it as positive thing. And after the revolution, I'm sure Myanmar will no longer be the same. Thank you.
So, we've touched on the global solidarity and then solidarity within the country. I'm wondering if you could comment on how Myanmar's neighbors in ASEAN have responded to this crisis, both the governments as well as civil society and social movements.
I just want to jump in anyway. I'm going to comment on that too. So regarding the solidarity, I just want to add a little bit, and it's amazing to see young people have shifted their mindset. They're even questioning their leaders, like Aung San Suu Kyi, the way that she stood on this issue. They started to question even Aung San Suu Kyi, and they felt like they were forced to like follow her somehow. Some young people are expressing their opinion on the issue right now in such a way. So it's fascinating. It's really amazing to see that. It's, yeah, I would never imagine that I would see something like that in a very short term. And I'm very hopeful for younger generation. However, we also have to understand that the power is still under the control of older generation, which appear to be actually to have not, yeah, I guess, how do I say that? I honestly, I don't think the older generation mindset would change anytime soon. So, I am very happy to see the spirit of younger generations. At the same time, I am a bit skeptical, and I'm a bit cautious. I don't want to be overly hopeful from the from on the situations, or seeing some support and some words of acknowledgement, regrets as such. But I wouldn't be overly optimistic on this, and I feel like even if we were able to take down the military, at some point turn the country into the democracy, I think we still have the issue of many other fundamental issues. So here's the thing, for Myanmar, it is not just the questions of, it is not the problem we are facing, the challenge we're facing is not the only challenge that we have in Myanmar. We have many other fundamental problems that has to be addressed, including the fighting between the Burma Army, Myanmar Army, and ethnic minorities army, the conflict long-lasting 6-7 decades long armed civil war and arms conflict across the country. And we also have another fundamental major issue around deep rooted divisions, ethnic divisions, and discriminations against the ethnic minorities, religious minorities. That's somehow feel like for people like us, who experience daily basics, it's feel like it's been rooted as a cancer that it might not be even easy to cure. And I am really concerned about that. Even sometimes we see that sometimes even in the movement, sometimes there has been deep-rooted divisions, prejudice, manipulations, and stereotyping, marginalizations of ethnic and religious minorities in many ways, although in most cases, the ethnic communities are in the forefront of the fight for decades, and they use everything that they have. But yet, the power sharing within with the Burman majority leaders and ethnic communities has not been equalized, had not been acknowledged, or how do I say that, distributed equally. And there has been so many I guess the mentality, this supremacist mentality, Burmese supremacy is part of it, not only nationalism, not only racism that divided us by the system, but also the supremacism that people embodied for so long that has been somehow become a culture. So for instance, there is so many level of discriminations. One is like for ethnic communities, you are only entitled to talk about your issue. You are not, you don't have, like, there is a perception. It's not like white t-shirt, but it's somehow white t-shirt, not everybody. But across the institutions and individuals, like, for example, if you are from this group, you are only you can only talk about this group. If you're Rohingya, only talk about Rohingya, but you cannot speak on behalf of the country, on behalf of the entire country's futures, because you are from the minority. But it is the Burmese or Burma majority. People from the Burma ethnic can represent the entire nation. So, I think these are just one example, but it's been very, very, I guess, it's become a culture, part of our culture, toxic culture that would further divide us in the future, even when we have a form of democracy. Like over the past 10 years, it wasn't democracy, of course, yes, but then it was the marginalizations and silence in ethnic communities was one of the attempts, one of a type of majoritarianism or dictatorship that we have seen. So I salute to the young people today looking beyond, a so-called, I guess, electoral democracy or majoritarianism, or even fighting the other forms of dictatorship, even under the democracy that we may experience, or we would experience. Yeah, I will let I guess I will let Matt speak about the ASEAN and international community, as I have talked so much.
Oh, that's very helpful, Wei. I think you made some excellent points, and you as well, Tanzar. I mean, the issue of the ethnic divisions and the potential for unity, I think is been amazing to see the potential for unity. But I agree with everything that you said there. On the issue of ASEAN states, ASEAN, of course, has a history of what it likes to refer to as non-interference in the internal affairs of member states, even if those internal affairs rise to the level of genocide, crimes against humanity, or in this case, the overthrow of a democratically elected government and a deadly, brutal crackdown. There have been some noteworthy changes in recent days. The ASEAN states held a meeting of foreign ministers just recently, and the certain member states have issued very strong statements. Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and specifically have condemned the military coup, more or less, called for those who are detained to be released, and is calling for some sort of negotiated settlement for this coup to be reversed. This is unusual for ASEAN. Of course, we're not hearing much out of Thailand, and which is not terribly surprising given the history of military coups in Thailand. But for the other ASEAN states, this is significant. And then, Sushma, to your other question about ASEAN people, we've also seen an outpouring of solidarity and support from people throughout the region. At Fortify Rights, we have a relatively small team. We're now 18 people, mostly from ASEAN states, mostly from the countries where we're working in the region. And we've been tracking it. Our multimedia team, Timur Sabhan and Thames Loop, have been doing great work trying to produce film content. And some of the footage reveals some of this really inspiring solidarity. Protesters in Thailand, for example, were banging pots and pans in solidarity with those in Myanmar. And of course, the banging of pots and pans has been a nationwide tactic to express dissent from this coup, but also to warn people when arrests or other attacks are taking place. So we've seen that really beautiful moment in Bangkok when Thai people were taking part in protests there. So I think we're doing whatever we can to support not only ethnic unity and solidarity within Myanmar, but also regionally. And I think this is a really important point. ASEAN, however, as Singapore mentioned in a statement, the future of ASEAN and its credibility is at stake here. If ASEAN fails to get on the right side of history or deal with these fissures within ASEAN, because there are member states who are just saying enough is enough, this is outrageous, this needs to stop. If other ASEAN states do not get on board, that will certainly affect the credibility of ASEAN. So we are encouraging ASEAN states and recommending that they unequivocally condemn this coup, do not recognize the legitimacy of the Myanmar military junta, do not welcome members of the junta for diplomatic visits. This is very important. Myanmar's own ambassador to the UN, Jamotun, recently and somewhat dramatically broke rank, spoke out against the military coup and called for the international community to recognize what the people of Myanmar are fighting for right now. There will be some battles ensuing at the UN with regard to who is credentialized to represent Myanmar at the UN. And right now, Jamotun is still the ambassador, and the military junta has no authority to dismiss him. We are likely to see the member states potentially vote on that issue, though, and that will be a very important moment for the people of Myanmar.
Thank you. I have one last question around the role of Facebook. We've touched on the military, social media. We've talked about, the protests on the ground. We've talked about the international community. And I'd like to just touch on the role of Facebook. And, Facebook recently announced that they will not allow the military in Myanmar to use its platforms going forward. And this has really been after years of the platform being misused by the military to spread hate speech and disinformation about the Rohingya. And so I'm wondering, is this too little too late, or is this a good step and one that will hopefully help ensure that companies really think about their social responsibilities in countries?
I can provide my observations here a little bit. I'll let others speak then feel or yes, Facebook, social media companies in general, social media platform plays very, very important role. And Facebook was one of the prominent factor that enable escalations of hate and prejudice against the Rohingya populations in the past 10 years. And they have taken, the issue of accountability on the social media companies has not been addressed yet. I think that is something that we're missing now. What kind of accountability they can, can be done, whether it should be a punitive measure or whether it should be a call to compensate affected communities and victims. I think these discussions has to move forward. Aside from that, Facebook has taken some affirmative actions on the in dealing with the situations in Myanmar, and they are regularly holding the meeting and civil meetings and discussions with the civil society organizations in Myanmar and beyond. So I think that is a great step, and they have also equipped or add resources in terms of Myanmar dealing with the Myanmar situation. So over the past 3 weeks, we have seen that the Facebook has taken down some of the military's Facebook page and their platform. So that's a great step as well. However, Facebook continue to play again a prominent role here in this coup as well. We also have to remember. I also want to remind that the military has been actually using internet cut as a form of repressions, as a form of showing the threatening people, a threat as a threat to the people, that they are capable of doing such thing. So like now internet cut at night become normal. So I think that is one factor. On the other hand, still the Facebook there, I can see that there are so many militaries proxy Facebook pages that target civil society groups, political leaders and activists, and they follow these people and they create like they continue to spread misinformations and disinformations and target this activists. In my individual case, we have like I feel like at least 10 proxy fake account following me and threatening me constantly through personal private messenger or on my public posts. So they come to attack you in many ways, to demoralize or to basically post the threat itself. It includes a death threat, to sexual harassment, to arrest, or many forms of threat. So that is ongoing, and Facebook is unable to actually address that. I have been dealing with this forever, for like 8 years now, but it hasn't go away. So I think there is still major issue missing in Facebook. Saying so now, since Facebook is started to limit the use of the spread of misinformations, and now and military is also controlling the Facebook. Now people are shifting to TikTok. So this is, I think, great concern that we need to pay attention to. As you know, the TikTok is the Chinese company, and although like in the past couple of days, people started to raise the issue of the military's individual posting threat against the public safety. Although I'm not sure that call has been addressed by the TikTok. I think we really need to, and young people mostly are using TikToks in these days. So I think I'm kind of very concerned. The fact that it's a Chinese company, the fact that they would ignore the situations, and the fact that military will take advantage of it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, since we're out of time, I thought if each of you could just share one sentence on a resource that you'd like to direct our audience to. It could be a resource within Myanmar or an international resource, something to help people to learn just more about the situation or what they can do about it. And maybe Matt, I'll start with you. So I'll go in the reverse order and end with Tenzar.
Thanks, Sushma. Yeah, I think, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is you can feel free to check out the work of our team at Fortify Rights. We're online, we're on social media, and we're doing what we can to document and monitor the atrocities. But of course, there are a litany of other organizations out there doing amazing work. And if anybody watching this is interested to help out with this crisis response, we really encourage you to get in touch. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Wei-Wei?
I guess, with the help of technology, I guess the social media itself is a great source. I think a lot of people are paying attention to the following the tweeters of many activists and political actors on Twitter show that Twitter is the great source of information that you could check on and follow, people who are working, journalists and activists working on Myanmar, like Tenzar and many others. I think that is a great way, and also like contact to these individuals if you feel like you want to contact, right? And there are also the some website that's available, like for example CDM website and AAPP website, and like some local groups website are quite active that you could find. And for Women's Peace Network, for my organizations, we were not very active on social media website in the past because of our safety and security. But now, it seems like we have no choices but to be active. So our social media pages and websites are getting active as well. So check www.womenspeacenetwork.org, and feel free to reach out to us, to any of us, if you want to have further discussions or support.
Thank you. Tenzar?
I would endorse to follow Burma Campaign UK, burmacampaign.org.uk. Is because they've been doing campaigning against the military businesses and related, business associates. So, and the second website is the justiceformyanmar.org, where you can find what you can do as an individual, as a citizen of your own country. And you can check if your government is largely involved with the military, or your businesses, joining with the military-related businesses. So I also saw a comment about my tweet. I recently call out the militaries around the world to denounce what military in Myanmar is doing. So yes, please share this message. I want every military in the world, especially the 13-country military that have been training and cooperating with the Burmese military, which is at the top is Australia, Japan, India, Thailand, Russia, China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Ukraine, North Korea, Nepal, Pakistan, and Belarus. These military are responsible to denounce what the military in Myanmar, especially in a terrorist manner, they are the terrorist group right now. So I call out these 13 countries first and other military to denounce Myanmar military. Thank you.
So thank you, each of you, for joining us today and for sharing about your work. And we wish you the very best. And we wish you safety and security for you, your friends, your family, and colleagues, and look forward to being in touch. And thank you to our audience for joining us today as well.